Well, yet another Liberal Speaker of the House of Commons is in hot water.
It was a non-political message to a personal friend.
A partisan tribute to a partisan friend at a partisan event.
Respect, impartiality, and decorum are values I continue to prioritize for my Speaker's tenure.
It has undermined the position of the Speaker so greatly that I must add my voice and the voice of the official opposition to those who have asked for the Speaker to resign.
Okay, all of that is in reference to a video by Speaker Greg Fergus that was played at the Ontario Liberal Leadership Convention as a tribute to the outgoing interim leader, John Fraser.
We had a lot of fun together through the Ottawa South Liberal Association, through Liberal Party politics, by helping Dalton McGuinty get elected. This was really...
Okay, so that's led to a big debate in Parliament, and Fergus has recused himself from the debate as Conservatives and Bloc Québécois MPs are pushing for Fergus to resign for breaching the requirement to be politically neutral and nonpartisan. We're going to bring in our not-so-neutral and not-so-nonpartisan power panel now. Brad Levine is going to join us in a bit. Or is he there, guys? Sorry. Brad Levine is there. Brad Levine is with Council Public Affairs. Gary Keller is a vice president at Strategy Corp. And here with me in the Ottawa studio, Vandana Cotter is a political consultant and former advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Rob Rousseau is the former CBC Parliamentary Bureau Chief, now writing for The Economist. I could have sworn a week ago was the Atlantic, but here we are. Vandana, let's start with Greg Fergus. He's only been in the job a couple of months. He's had already a couple of run-ins with Andrew Scheer and the Conservatives here. How does he move forward with the second and third largest parties in the House calling for him to go?
I mean, I think he just keeps doing what he's doing and shows himself that, he's still new to the role. He's a well-respected member of the House of Commons. He makes alliances between all parties. He's been chair of the Parliamentary Black Caucus, which was just like a multi-partisan caucus. So I think it's something that he's new to the role. He has new staff, and maybe they didn't, from what I understand from John Fraser's tweet, didn't fully understand where it was being used. It was a personal message. So I think it's more about just, pushing forward, acknowledging he made a mistake and just moving forward and showing that he's up for making sure there's better decorum in the House.
So if we take it at face value, though, that it was meant to be a private message, why do it in the robes and in the chambers? Why not just do it in a suit as Greg to John, going back to the early days of their political careers, rather than putting on the garb of the Speaker of the House?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have been something as simple as, I don't know if he was doing this between sittings or between, and then his staff maybe thought that instead of switching out to MP, Greg Fergus for Elmer, that just going for Hall Elmer and then going to the Speaker, it could be something as simple as not fully understanding that the nature of where it was being used. Maybe it was going to be a personal event. I don't know, but I assume that's where he thought, okay, it's nonpartisan, I'm working, it should be fine, it's a tribute to my friend John, sure, we'll do that, and then didn't really realize exactly where it was going to go.
Well, Gary, where it's gone now is not a good place if you're Greg Fergus and if you're the Liberals. I mean, it started with Andrew Scheer wanting it to go to committee, which is what the NDP says should still happen, but the Bloc called for him to go pretty quickly, and then by this afternoon, the Conservatives have joined that. What do you make of where we are?
Well, I had to laugh at your previous commentator. Blame the staff. I mean, that's, the standard Liberal response here. I mean, if for all the mess ups in this Liberal government, blame the staff. If I had $1 for every mess up blamed on the staff, I'd be a wealthy man these days. Look, Greg Fergus, I think, is in real trouble here. He's lost the confidence of both the official opposition and the Bloc Québécois. He's still facing a call for this to go to a parliamentary committee. And the rule book of the House of Commons is very, very clear on this. It says the Speaker of the House of Commons not to...
Oh, have we lost Gary? I think we lost...
Did you lose me?
He's back. Here he comes. Yeah, I think you're back. Go ahead, buddy. Finish your point.
So the Speaker must always be show impartiality and be seen to at least respect the House of Commons in terms of impartiality, and that is seriously at question here. And I really wonder if this is going to be a question of Greg Fergus lasting longer than a head of lettuce, like Liz Truss and the head of lettuce in the UK House of Commons.
So Brad, look, what he said, if you actually listen to the message, it was a fairly anodyne, just kind of tribute to John Fraser. It wasn't like, a rah-rah, let's go beat those evil Conservatives type thing. It was just reminiscing about the early days. But he was in the robe and he was in the office. And that may seem silly to people who aren't in Parliament, but he's in charge of Parliament and there are rules in Parliament. So how much trouble do you think Greg Fergus is in at this point over this?
Well, I think the amount of trouble he's in is I think directly correlated to what else is going to occupy our time as Ottawa and House of Commons and parliamentary watchers. If there's something else to take this off, then this will seem adorable in due time. I remember, I think it was a Monday Power Panel. I believed when he was first placed in this position, one of the many threads throughout our conversation about Greg Fergus as the just elected Speaker was that he comes from a long line of partisan Liberals. He was, before he was Speaker, he was obviously a Liberal partisan. He was the president of the party at one point. He was the go-to person for Trudeau in the House of Commons to
Carl
be a bit of
to the Prime Minister actually was one of
Absolutely. He was the pit bull. He would go out there and defend the PM. So he came into this role from a background of being a bit of a partisan. Why is this important to the folks at home? Because the position of Speaker, as has been stated, needs to be neutral, and the position of Speaker needs to be well respected. This was a video in the robe and in the office that was shown at a partisan event for the predominantly, if not exclusive, use of that party to promote itself either internally with those in the room, those watching online, or for newscasts later. Mr. Fergus would not do this for the Bloc Québécois. He would not do this for the Conservative or the New Democratic parties of Canada. So obviously, this could be in trouble. I think it should go to committee. I think the NDP are right here. I think if you call for his resignation too quickly, without due diligence, then the threat of asking for the resignation becomes a little impotent, and I think that's the problem with the Bloc and the Conservatives. They're crying wolf too much. We need due process to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Right, Rob, Brad lays out the argument that was there. People like Jenny Byrne on Twitter very quickly when Greg Fergus his name was floated to be Speaker, discounting him because of that partisan past. Like, where do you think he is right now in terms of his political sustainability?
I think if he goes, it'll be just 2 months that he's in the job, and we'll turn the Speaker's chair into an ejector seat, given the way they're turning them over these days. But look, I think Brad's right. I think Mr. Fergus is paying to a certain extent for past partisanship. I think that the Bloc, Mr. Therrien, their House Leader, made that point in the comments today. I think of the election of 2019 when I was here with the CBC. He was brought out to defend Justin Trudeau at a very low point in that election when Mr. Trudeau was caught, or photos were unearthed of him in blackface. So he has played a particularly partisan role in the past. That was one of the arguments against him being Speaker. That's been reinforced in a way. Look, you compare it to what happened to Anthony Rota. This is not the same as inviting a former Nazi in to be celebrated in front of a Jewish president who is being threatened by an authoritarian leader. It's not the same thing. But it does look like a dumb mistake. And I'll tell you what I was struck by. I was struck by your interview earlier with Mr. Wilkinson, where he didn't rush to defend Greg Fergus. He actually said he needs to hear some things from Greg Fergus and he wants to speak to him. That's not a stout defense. It'll be interesting to see whether the Liberals are starting to move away from Mr. Fergus as well.
Yes, and Yvonne and I have no idea if that's the case, but also like Minister Wilkinson, who's a very careful guy in public, Cabinet hasn't met, caucus hasn't met. I think that he was also trying not to get too far out ahead of his skis. But going back to the Greg Fergus question, his partisanship that has been well documented here, given that, knowing how these things go, his judgment should have, maybe I shouldn't do this in the robes. Maybe I shouldn't do this in the office. Don't you think that should have clicked in?
Sure, and I think to be fair, I think he caught Mr. Wilkinson off guard, talking about completely something different. Let's be honest, like every MP that sits as a Speaker is a partisan. You know, the former Speaker of the House, Andrew Scheer, was the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Like everyone doesn't mean off cycle that they're all of a sudden Andrew Scheer's thinking of like non-partisan things. Like everyone's a partisan. You just you're in the House of Commons. Your job is to show non-partiality in how it's run. So this was I don't know. I do think it was a mistake. I think Mr. Fergus has been admonished enough. I think he's had that, but I really think it's about moving forward. But going back to your point, Jenny Byrne making a comment. They don't want this to work for Mr. Fergus. They have no problem undermining him in the House. It's about partisan politics. It's not about the actual role or whether he made one mistake. Does it mean it changes his judgment in the House of Commons? I don't think so.
Gary, I accept that everybody who runs to be Speaker of the House is a partisan, right? You wouldn't be in the House of Commons if you weren't. But really, it's about how you can. So his record prior to becoming Speaker, is it fair to hold that against somebody when they're in the Speaker's office if they are conducting themselves in a non-partisan way? I know this issue of a video that got shown at a partisan conference by mistake or on purpose is one thing. But his history, I mean, you're never going to be able to elect a Speaker of the House of Commons who's up to the job if you dig up everything everyone's ever done in the past to discredit them, right?
No, but speakers of the House of Commons traditionally take active measures to prevent these things from happening.
Right.
They don't go to caucus. They don't go to party conventions. They stay out of it. If they need something for their constituents, it's done very quietly and not in a very public manner, because that would threaten the impartiality of the House of Commons. Now, we just had a Speaker of the House jettisoned for showing extremely bad judgment. You would think that Mr. Fergus, as the Speaker, say, wow, I'm going to have to really mind my P's and Q's here and be on my best behavior possible and not give any suggestion that I might be acting in favor of one party or another party. And he just completely blew it. It is a dumb mistake. And I think it's a very serious mistake that could cost him his speakership.
Do you really think you should go over this, Gary? Do you really think you should go over this?
Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Point about Wilkinson. I also noticed that too. That was not exactly a warm and fuzzy declaration. I too would like to see this go to committee. But now we have two parties in the House of Commons who have expressed non-confidence in them. It's going to be very difficult for him to maintain his position, I think.
Yeah. And Brad, to the point about Jonathan Wilkinson, maybe Von Denen is right. He wasn't expecting that, and it was not the reason we invited him on. And I want to thank him for taking those questions in good faith and in good humor. But do you think Greg Fergus survives this, or do you think this could be the beginning of the end of his speakership? It seems unclear to me at this point.
Well, to his benefit, I mean, there's only a handful of days left in the sitting, so that's probably to his advantage. If we had a nice long 7-8 week run, he might be in bigger trouble. But here's the kicker, and here's where he may be in trouble. To the point that he's lost the confidence of the Conservatives in the Bloc. That's a pretty sizable chunk of the House of Commons. Mm-hmm. He ran on a platform. All the Speaker candidates run on a platform. Here's what I'll do. I'll bring this to the Speaker role. I'll bring that to the Speaker role. And that's all well intentioned. One of Mr. Fergus's key commitments was to establish decorum in the House of Commons and to either regain or gain a level of respect in the House of Commons, particularly at things like question period, which are absolutely just at their worst, I think many observers would say, in terms of the level of vitriolic backing and forthing. Tomorrow, this week, will the decorum in the House of Commons be better or worse because of Mr. Fergus's decision to wear the robes at a partisan video greeting on the weekend? It'll be a lot worse, and so therefore the day-to-day functioning of question period and of Parliament is put at risk. If that maintains itself for a long period of time, a lot of people might just put their hands up and say this guy can't control the Speaker's role anymore. He can't keep decorum. Well,
Rob, decorum was bad before this video. I don't know if this is going to be.
It'll be worse though, David. It'll be worse tomorrow.
But no one can control the House right now. This is how it is.
Yeah. I mean, he promised that he would bring decorum back.
But how is one person going to do that when an opposition is constantly undermining our institutions? Like, there's no one person in this environment who's going to be able to do that.
But he ran on that platform. The question is for Mr. Fergus,
but
not for me.
But how can one person actually control the House of Commons given the environment right now? That's not going to be possible.
They have the power to do so. They can expel members. They can call people out.
If they were going to expel every member that speaks out of turn, we'd have no members in the House right now. Or we'd have very little of the House right now. It's like children at the time.
He's being held accountable for his partisan actions. This is literally one of the first lines in the rule book of the House of Commons, is you have to not just be seen to be impartial, you have to be impartial in all things that you're doing. And that's why speakers traditionally recuse themselves of all sorts of activities, going to caucus, going to cabinet, or not cabinet meetings, going to party conventions, all those sorts of things, to fundraisers, to avoid this. And I listened to Mr. Fergus's message. It was a very partisan, warm, we all did this together. We worked to help Dalton McGuinty get elected. Like, come on. Like, he has shown terrible judgment at a time when the Speaker of the House of Commons, because of the actions of the past Speaker, we need to see a strong leader in that position, and he is showing that he may not have been up to the job.
Okay, I've lost control of a four-person panel. I can't even imagine what the House of Commons will be like. Yvonne, a quick response to that, and then I want a last word from Rob.
This was not a federal Liberal biennial. This was not anything like that. Yes, it's still partisan. It is the Ontario Liberal Party. It is a long-standing friend for him. I think it's different if he was doing a video to a federal issue attacking the Conservatives, then yes, I totally understand that is a big problem. Here, I think there was a mistake made, a long-time tribute to a friend, talking about provincial politics. You know, everyone has that history in the House. Everyone takes his chair is going to have the history in the House. And you know what, to be honest, I will challenge anyone. There is no one at this point who's going to be able to control decorum of that many people given the environment.
Well, it's certainly not going to be me because I'm blowing time here. Rob, quick last thought.
This is a coarser House of Commons than I have seen in a long, long time. If this was 6 months ago, if this was 6 years ago, he might have a better chance of surviving this. The coarseness of debate does make it harder for him to survive.